Imagine, imagine waking up in mid-April.
Okay.
The heavy winter snows are, finally melting. The spring rains have been pouring down for days. And you walk downstairs to look out your front window, but instead of seeing your driveway or like the familiar asphalt of your street or the sidewalk, you just see a river.
Oh, man.
It is brown, it's moving aggressively fast, and it is creeping ominously up your front steps.
Yeah, that is definitely not what you want to see with your morning coffee.
Right. But for a lot of people living in vulnerable areas, that is not a scene from some distant, I don't know, dystopian climate movie.
Oh,
That is just Tuesday. That is their reality during the spring thaw.
it is, yeah. It's a terrifying reality. And historically, the municipal response to that kind of disaster has been entirely reactive.
Totally.
You basically just wait for the river to breach its banks, you stack the sandbags, you pump out the flooded basements, and then you spend millions of dollars fixing washed out roads and ruined infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then, this is the crazy part, you just cross your fingers and hope it doesn't happen again the next year.
Right. But what happens when a community decides they are, done crossing their fingers? What happens when a municipality decides that instead of just cleaning up after a disaster, they are going to use that vulnerability as the blueprint to completely reinvent their civic heart?
It changes everything.
It really does. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking you on a journey into the future of urban design. We're looking at a community that is fundamentally changing its relationship with nature.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case study.
And we are pulling all the details for this from some incredible source material published today on wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to fall down this rabbit hole yourself after we finish, both platforms have the original publications up in text and audio formats.
Highly recommend checking those out.
For sure. So our mission today is to explore a remarkably ambitious new project happening right now in the borough of Pierrefonds Roxboro, which is a part of the city of Montreal. They are building an 11,000 square meter public square, but this is a far cry from the traditional flat concrete expanse with a statue and a flock of pigeons.
Very true.
They are building a highly engineered, climate-resilient water square. Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to really grasp the brilliance of what they're trying to achieve here, we have to start by setting the geographical stage.
Lay it out for us.
You just can't understand the design of this square without understanding the reality of the ground it's being built on. Pierrefonds Roxboro is defined by its relationship to water.
Right.
The borough is actually surrounded by 27 kilometers of shoreline along the Riviera des Prairies.
Let's just pause and put 27 kilometers into perspective for a second, because that is an enormous border.
It's huge.
Like, that is roughly the equivalent of having the entire length of Manhattan, from the tip of Battery Park all the way past Harlem as your neighborhood's backyard. Managing that much moving water on a daily basis is, it's a monumental task for any residential borough.
It is, yeah. It's a massive geographical feature, and it has always been a double-edged sword for the community.
How so?
Well, on one hand, it provides this incredibly beautiful scenic backdrop for the residents, But on the other hand, it has brought severe, devastating spring floods to the area in recent years.
Right, because of the melt.
Exactly. When the snow melts upstream and the heavy rains hit, that water rises, it overtakes the banks, and it just relentlessly invades the streets and the neighborhoods.
Which brings us to the political and, I guess, civic catalyst for this whole terraforming project. The sources highlight the perspective of Dimitrios, or Jim Bass, who is the mayor of the Pierrefonds Roxboro.
Yeah, his role here is crucial.
Right, because his vision for this new square was born directly out of the trauma of those recent spring floods. He championed the creation of this new public space with a very specific, aggressive mandate, really, that they were going to actively integrate innovative practices for development in flood zones. The explicit goal here isn't just to give people a nice place to sit. It is to directly reduce the impacts of future floods.
And that right there is a total reimagining of what a public square is structurally supposed to do for a city.
Normally they just look nice.
Right. Traditionally, civic spaces sit on top of the landscape. They're rigid, they're flat, they don't interact with the ecology around them at all.
Yeah, they're just there.
Exactly. Mayor Bice's approach demands that the infrastructure actually works with the environmental threats, rather than just ignoring them until they overflow.
I look at it this way. Think about those traditional public squares we were just talking about. Mechanically speaking, they are basically giant concrete puddles.
That's a good way to put it.
Because, Concrete and asphalt are essentially impermeable lids placed over the earth. So when it rains heavily or when a river swells and breaches its banks, that flat concrete has nowhere to put the water. It cannot absorb it.
No, it really can't.
Instead, it acts as a slide, pushing all that excess water directly into municipal storm sewers that are honestly likely already completely overwhelmed by the flooding.
Which just compounds the problem.
Exactly. The design of a traditional square actually makes the flooding problem worse. But what Pierrefonds Roxboro is doing here is fundamentally different. They are building a sponge.
A sponge is the perfect conceptual way to visualize it. But the mechanics of how that sponge works are where the real engineering magic happens.
Wait, hold on. Let me jump in here. Because I am trying to picture this, and 11,000 square meters sounds huge for a local park.
It is a good size.
But when you are up against an entire swelling river that spans 27 kilometers of shoreline, I mean, a sponge that size is going to fill up in 10 minutes.
You would think so, yeah.
Right. How does one public square actually stop a flood? Are we overstating what this space can actually do?
That is exactly the right question to ask, and honestly, the honest answer is no. One square will not stop the Rivière des Prairies from rising.
Okay, so what's the point then?
Well, to think of it as a dam is missing the broader point. What this space represents is a crucial paradigm shift in urban engineering. It's about localizing water management rather than displacing it.
Okay, what do you mean by localizing it?
So, in traditional urban planning, the goal is always to move the water somewhere else as fast as possible, right? Usually through massive pipes.
Right.
But pipes have a maximum capacity. When they fill up, the streets flood. This project flips the script. Instead of funneling water away, it's designed to hold it right where it falls and right where it encroaches.
Oh, I see.
It acts as a pressure release valve for the local infrastructure. If you can hold thousands of gallons of water in this square for even just a few days during the peak of a spring thaw, you prevent the local sewer system from backing up into people's basements.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, you're turning a municipal vulnerability, the flood zone, into a highly functional asset.
Okay, that makes complete sense. It is part of a larger defensive strategy.
Yeah.
It buys the municipal grid time. And that brings us to the actual physical design of this sponge-like civic space. Because to pull off a project that actively retains floodwater, but still looks like a place you actually want to hang out in on a Tuesday afternoon, that takes some serious architectural heavy lifting.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't want the center of your town to look like a swamp.
Definitely not. It requires a flawless marriage of high-end aesthetics and incredibly complex ecological engineering. You are hiding massive utilitarian function beneath a beautiful form.
And the minds tasked with pulling this off come from the winning consortium, WAA Montreal, Inc., working in collaboration with Ponton Guillot.
Yep.
The sources note that this was a fiercely competitive multi-agency competition to win this bid. I mean, they beat out some really heavy hitters. There was that team with ADHOC, Helio Orojo, and GBI.
Right, and Vipe Sage with Eureka Environment.
Yeah. Plus the Pelletier de Fontenay group with Enclume and Ellen Paysage, just really fierce competition. But the WAA Montreal and Ponton Guillot team clearly had a concept that was absolutely bulletproof.
We really did.
So let's get into the mechanics of it. How exactly does a paved public square naturally retain and manage water without turning into a mud pit?
It comes down to fundamentally rethinking the materials and, well, the subterranean architecture.
Okay.
Instead of pouring a solid slab of traditional asphalt or concrete, they utilize permeable surfaces.
Permeable meaning?
These are materials, whether it's specialized pavers with gaps or even porous concrete, that allow water to seep directly through the surface.
So the ground is literally porous. It breathes.
Precisely. But the water doesn't just seep into dirt, you know. Beneath those permeable surfaces, ecological engineers typically construct massive subterranean retention systems.
What does that look like?
Imagine huge excavated basins filled with specific grades of gravel and stone. When the floodwaters rush in, or the heavy spring rains fall, the water percolates down through the pavement and fills up these underground gravel beds.
So it's basically an invisible pool.
Exactly. The square holds the water beneath the surface, completely out of sight, and then slowly, over the course of days or weeks, allows it to naturally infiltrate back into the deep water table, or slowly releases it into the municipal drains at a manageable rate.
So the square is drinking the floodwater.
It is drinking it, yeah. And they also integrate surface-level bioswales.
Bioswales.
Yeah, these are essentially beautifully landscaped, shallow depressions filled with specific types of native vegetation and deep-rooted plants.
Oh, Okay, so like rain gardens.
Exactly. But they aren't just decorative gardens. They're highly engineered pathways that catch surface runoff. The plants and the soil actually filter out the debris and the pollutants from the street water before it ever hits the underground water table.
That's amazing.
Right. It's a dual-action system that manages volume and cleans the water simultaneously.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because spring floods are only one half of the climate crisis equation, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
You have the wet, dangerous spring thaws, but then you fast forward a few months and you are dealing with summer heat waves.
Brutal ones, too.
Right. And anyone who has ever stood in a traditional concrete square in August knows that it is basically an outdoor oven. The concrete absorbs the sun all day and radiates it back out. But this design is basically a two-way street for climate defense.
How so?
Well, in the summer, they are deploying urban misting systems throughout the square.
And again, this isn't just about putting a lawn sprinkler on the pavement. Right.
Far from it. They are intentionally creating active cooling islands to fight off urban heat waves. They use high-pressure nozzles that create a microscopic fog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and as those tiny water droplets hit the hot summer air, they evaporate almost instantly. And that process of evaporation actually pulls thermal energy out of the air, dropping the ambient temperature of the square by several degrees.
That is brilliant.
So the space completely adapts to the crisis of the season. It sucks up water and hides it when there's too much of it flooding the banks, and it sprays water into the air when the environment is dangerously dry and hot.
What's fascinating here is how the design team managed to seamlessly marry that heavy-duty, almost industrial-level ecological utility with the visual aesthetics of the borough.
Right, because it still has to look nice.
Because as you noted earlier, nobody wants to spend their Saturday afternoon hanging out at a municipal water treatment plant.
Yeah, no thanks.
You want a public square to feel like a tranquil oasis. And the architectural concept does something incredibly clever to achieve that. It visually and physically stretches the existing woodland of the nearby Millennium Park directly towards the new paved area.
It essentially pulls the forest right into the concrete.
It does. It promotes this highly welcoming organic green transition directly from Pierrefonds Boulevard. The boundary between the natural park and the engineered square is intentionally blurred.
That's a great design trick.
It really is.
Yeah.
So if you're walking off a busy, loud commercial street, you transition smoothly into a space that feels like a natural, heavily shaded extension of the local woodland.
Which is huge for mental health.
Absolutely. The psychological impact of that kind of greenery on a community is profound. It lowers stress, it reduces noise pollution, and it makes the space feel like a sanctuary rather than just, a piece of municipal infrastructure.
It sounds totally idyllic, but as you and I both know, ideas this revolutionary, they don't just magically appear out of thin air.
No, they certainly do not.
They require meticulous planning, a massive amount of cross-departmental coordination, and of course, a whole lot of funding.
Always comes back to the budget.
It always does. So let us step back from the conceptual beauty of the architecture and look at the practical reality of actually getting it built. How does a local borough pull this off?
Well, the financial commitment is substantial, but it is highly targeted. The construction budget allocated for this is $3.7 million.
Okay, $3.7 million.
Yep. And according to the sources, that is being funded by the City of Montreal's 10-year capital expenditure program.
So the broader city is pitching in.
Exactly. In municipal terms, that means the broader city is recognizing the localized value of this project and opening the checkbook to make it happen.
$3.7 million is a serious investment, but honestly, it is the timeline that really caught my eye in the source material.
Oh, the timeline is fascinating.
I was looking at this roadmap, and it is a fascinating look at how slow the wheels of urban development can turn. This all started back in December of 2024.
Right.
That is when they launched the multidisciplinary competition, bringing in numerous architectural teams to pitch their visions. By May 2025, they had vetted the candidates down to 4 finalists.
Moving along pretty well at that point.
Yeah, then they hold public hearings, and they finally pick the winner, WAA Montréal and Ponton Guillot, in November 2025.
So they have a fully realized winning design by the end of 2025.
Right. But here is the part that might cause some raised eyebrows for anyone listening. The public call for tenders to actually find the construction companies to build it doesn't happen until late 2026.
A full year later.
Yeah. Then they don't actually break ground and start landscaping until spring 2027 and the grand inauguration,
Yeah.
when you and I can finally go walk through this square.
When is it?
That is slated for spring 2028.
Wow.
We are talking about nearly 4 years from the launch of the competition to cutting the ribbon. And I have to ask, on behalf of anyone listening who has ever lost their mind waiting for local road construction to finish, why?
It does seem like a long time.
With all due respect to the brilliance of the engineering, it is still an 11,000 square meter park. Why does it take 3.5, 4 years?
It is a very common and frankly very fair frustration for local residents watching urban development. When you drive by a fenced-off dirt lot for 2 years, it feels like nothing is happening.
Right, you just see tractors sitting there.
Exactly. But calling it just a park drastically underestimates the immense hidden complexity involved here. You have to remember, this isn't just about planting a few nice trees and pouring some decorative concrete walkways.
True.
This project requires integrating advanced, high-stakes flood zone engineering. They are completely altering how thousands of gallons of water behave on a massive piece of land directly adjacent to a volatile river.
Oh, I see. So if they get the math wrong, they accidentally flood the neighborhood themselves.
Precisely. The liability is massive. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, you have to conduct exhaustive soil testing. You have to run complex hydraulic modeling to simulate how a 100-year flood will interact with the new underground retention beds.
That sounds intense.
It is. You need environmental impact assessments to ensure you aren't disrupting the local ecosystem of the river.
Right, because you were dealing with a living body of water.
Exactly. And on top of the physical engineering, you have the democratic process. They conducted public hearings because community buy-in is absolutely essential.
You can't just spring this on people.
No, you cannot just drop a $3.7 million terraforming project into a residential neighborhood without letting the people who live there voice their concerns and shape the outcome. Democracy takes time.
Good point.
And then finally, there's the logistical nightmare of coordinating this brand new subterranean water infrastructure with the existing municipal services.
Like the sewer lines.
The sewer lines, the power grids, the local traffic patterns, all of this demands a cautious, methodical, and highly regulated timeline. You simply cannot rush a project that is fundamentally designed to protect a city from natural disasters.
Okay, when you lay out the stakes like that, 4 years almost feels fast for engineering a civic flood defense system from scratch.
It's actually a fairly aggressive timeline, all things considered.
So we've covered the environmental mechanics, we've covered the $3.7 million budget, and the rigorous timeline. So what does this all mean?
It's the big question.
How does this massive investment actually improve the daily lived experience of the residents of Pierrefonds Roxboro? Because if it is just a highly functional, nice-looking sponge, that is great for the city's infrastructure grid. But what about the people who actually live there?
That is the triple bottom line of modern urban planning. A truly successful project has to serve the environment, the economy, and the society equally.
Okay.
And socially, this water square is positioned to be an absolute catalyst for the community.
And a lot of that comes down to the location. It is prime civic real estate. This new space isn't being tucked away on the edge of town.
No, it's right in the center.
It is going to sit right in front of the Borough Hall. It is right next to the future aquatic complex. It is near the library and the cultural center. They are dropping this high-tech oasis right into the existing municipal heartbeat of the area.
And that synergy with those neighboring services is exactly what drives the impressive daily attendance projections.
What are the numbers?
During the summer, the municipality is forecasting between 800 and 1,200 visitors per day.
Wow, that is a massive amount of consistent foot traffic for a localized public square.
It is. And the design intentionally features highly accessible rest areas, shaded canopies, and secure, well-lit pathways. The explicit goal mentioned in the sources is to create a four-season space that helps, quote, break social isolation.
And I want to pause on that phrase because we rarely talk about the psychological impact of infrastructure.
We really don't, but it is a critical metric for a healthy city. Breaking social isolation means ensuring that a senior citizen has a safe, shaded, easily accessible place to interact with their neighbors instead of feeling trapped in a sweltering apartment during a July heat wave.
Yeah, that is so important.
It means a teenager has a vibrant, welcoming place to hang out that isn't, the back of a fast food parking lot. It's designed to encourage people of all generations, from toddlers leaving the library with their parents, to seniors taking a daily walk, to safely make the space their own. It builds a sense of shared community ownership.
It creates a collision space for the neighborhood. But moving beyond the social and psychological benefits, there are some very hard, quantifiable economic benefits to this $3.7 million price tag. Let's talk about the halo effect on real estate.
The real estate impact is undeniable. The presence of high-quality architectural civic infrastructure, combined with beautifully managed, resilient green spaces, historically provides a significant, tangible boost to surrounding residential real estate values.
Oh, it's because it makes people actually want to live there. It signals that the neighborhood is safe, modern, and cared for.
Exactly. The sources explicitly note that this kind of forward-thinking development positions the sector as a top choice for young households looking to settle down and raise a family. It elevates the entire neighborhood's profile.
And it isn't just residential properties getting a boost. There is a massive commercial revitalization aspect to this.
Absolutely.
By turning this space into a legitimate destination hub, you are inherently driving up pedestrian traffic. If you have 1,200 people a day walking around the square in the summer, they are going to walk along Pierrefonds Boulevard.
Right.
That direct increase in foot traffic is a massive benefit to all the local businesses in the area. People buy coffees, they go to local shops, they grab lunch. The square essentially acts as an engine that feeds the local economy.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the most profound financial impact of this water square isn't just the new money coming in. It is the money that is not going out.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, the long-term structural savings are the real triumph of this project.
The preventative savings.
Yes. By investing $3.7 million now in preventive development within a known flood zone, the municipality is actively avoiding massive catastrophic rehabilitation costs down the line.
Because floods are expensive.
Insanely expensive. When the next major spring flood inevitably hits, this square will absorb a significant portion of that shock. It will mitigate the damage. The cost of cleaning up flooded municipal infrastructure, repaving washed-out roads, and bailing out flooded borough buildings far exceeds $3.7 million.
Makes total sense.
So, purely at the municipal ledger level, this project guarantees an excellent return on investment.
It really is a masterclass in shifting a community's perspective. It takes a known, terrifying threat, the swelling river, and instead of just building a higher, uglier concrete wall to hide behind, it creates a space that actually works with the water.
Beautifully said.
It protects the infrastructure, it cools the air, and it gives everyone a beautiful shared place to gather. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, the core takeaway for you is this. Pierrefonds Roxboro is proving that climate adaptation doesn't have to look like a bleak, dystopian concrete bunker.
Nope, not at all.
It can be a thriving, highly engineered, beautiful civic heart that boosts the local economy, cools you down in the summer, and brings a fractured community together.
It really challenges our baseline assumptions about what a city can be. And it leaves me with this thought to mull over, if a single 11,000 square meter space can be cleverly engineered to absorb devastating spring floods, cool down dangerous summer heat waves, and simultaneously revitalize local businesses, what would happen if every single new public square in the world was mandated to serve this dual purpose?
Wow, that would be something.
Right. If every new gathering space also had been an active climate defense mechanism, could our cities eventually become entirely self-healing?
That is an incredible thought to carry with you today. From fragile concrete puddles to resilient, self-healing cities. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for your attention. You can find all our articles, columns, and special editions in audio and text formats. Our content is accessible on mobile, tablet, computer, and television via wikiresidence.ca. Please feel free to share your comments and suggestions with us.